Hey readers, this is Lydia Lopinto reporting to you from our blog, the new blog in our website, which is Lopinto Books, by the way, if you wanted to see it, called lopintobooks.com. It's our new blog. It contains information about our books and a section called Lydia's EcoBlog right here. And this is where I have a regular feature where I talk about different environmental crimes and some of the books that we publish to highlight these crimes and these problems, environmental problems. So this blog today is about an eco thriller called Target Alaska and why we wrote it in 2001. At the time, there was a lot of news items about cruise liners polluting the waters. And there was also a lot of talk about terrorism. It was pre 9/11 and the possibility that they could make some sort of nuclear bomb. And of course, after that, you know what happened. We went into a very long war looking for these nuclear devices or weapons of mass destruction. Um, we wanted to investigate that to see if it was possible that someone could, with the technology, which is by now 12 years old, could actually build these devices, and to also find out what was going on with the cruise liners. So we did a lot of research before we wrote the books. But let me read you the blog, since you're here to understand what I wrote today. When we first wrote Target Alaska, it was titled Countdown Alaska. While the book was about a thriller about the potential materials processing to be happening right under our noses, that's for nuclear materials, it was also about how cruise ships are the perfect vehicles for ocean dumping. The regular trash and wastewater from a cruise ship is minimally processed and often ends up in the ocean outside of the legal limits where it's regulated. The huge smoke stack in our cruise were pretty disturbing. This thing spews out black smoke along a trail, and do people really think the smoke just dissipates or disappears? And if you've been on a cruise, you've seen this thing. And I think I have a picture right below what this looks like. And let me go to the full article. This is the full article, by the way, if you're looking at the blog. I don't have a picture, but some of these links do have photos of what the cruise ship smokestack looks like. And if you've been on one, you know that it gets really dark when you get on to sea. It's only light usually when you leave a port such as New York, because then they have to burn more expensive fuel to do that, and they don't want to, waste a lot of money on protecting the environment. So what happens to the trash and smoke, plus the sewage that is dumped from what is to like a small city floating around the ocean? Well, the answer is maybe some of the stuff is consumed by bacteria or small fish, and then those fish eat the little ones, and I guess what? The nice wild-caught fish you think is so clean just ate a fish that ate someone's nail polish remover or someone's bleached toilet paper. And I'm not talking about every cruise liner. Some cruise liners are actually environmentally conscious and they don't dump this stuff, but others do, and there's no real regulations. And do you think that bacteria from human waste simply dies out in the ocean? Hardly. Thousands of people are cruising along the ocean in a very concentrating floating city. And think about this being just like a small town in USA, and those towns require some sort of treatment for their sewage. Can the oceans absorb this? Well, the ocean is pretty big. There's 7 times more ocean than there is land, and they're pretty deep. And some people think this is a drop in the bucket. So why should we bother? Do fish eat that human excrement and the toxic materials, and does it just convert? Well, a lot of people believe that. Yes, there are regulations and a certain amount of treatment, but what really inspired us were the gravity of the many ships that were caught in 2003. when we had an actual budget available to pay the investigators, by the way, which we don't anymore. They weren't just dumping sewage in paper plates or tampon plastic holders, but they were dumping illegal toxics. Why? Because the cost of legally disposing this material is huge, and someone thought to make a profit. They just take it on a cruise ship and they dump it overboard. How easy is that? And you make 500, maybe a couple $1,000 a load. I found plenty of news material in 2001 to create a plausible ocean dumping scenario. It came from the FBI and the EPA. Now that we have re-released the novel under its new name with young characters and a fancy title, Target, which is nice because it fits nicely in a book cover that is as big as a postage stamp for my Kindle books. In the book, Juliana Del Rio, a young EPA environmentalist, wants to do more than just go to court and gather lab evidence. She's sort of a geek and Hispanic, like me, the author, by the way, but that's beside the point. She wanted to fight these criminals that she absolutely despised. So when she gets the chance to join the FBI as a consultant on a new environmental crimes unit, she gladly leaves her Washington office and flies to New York. Unfortunately, has no field experience fighting crime, so her supervisor, Mrs. Gutierrez, wisely teams her up with Sean Ryan, an inexperienced FBI agent who doesn't share her tree-hugging enthusiasm and misses his job as a narc back in the days. He doesn't like inexperienced and weak women cops either, especially arrogant and opinionated ones like Juliana. But as you know, in nature, the attraction of opposites is what makes up all matter in the universe. So I guess you can guess what's going to happen there. This is the start of the novel where we introduce this unique, unlikely duo, and we use them and we see them fight crimes that no one realizes how serious they are until they unfold. I was thinking after 12 years, did the cruise line industry clean up its act, or did we run out of money to enforce the regulations? So here's my analysis. I decided to just Google it and do some news searches to see what I came up with. And you can go to the blog and click on these if you want. I gave you the nice links. The fact is, and I'm not going to go through the rest, but there's quite a few links here that I uncovered. Let me just go through some of them. By the way, our novels have received many 5-star reviews. And that's not just now with this Amazon review system that they have, but that was from the old fashioned newspaper reviewers where we actually sent them hard paper copies. And they really liked the novel. They liked the idea of someone talking about environmental crime in their novels. But let me just go over what I've just found out about the cruise liners, and it's pretty yuck. There's some pictures that will turn your stomach, and I have put in some links about it. You know, when you look at some of the stuff, I mean, you know, Juliana nearly killed the captain in the story because she was just so angry at what people were doing to the ocean, and she loved the ocean. And I have a grandchild now, and I don't think I'm taking a cruise again until I can be sure the cruise line is green all the way. I think I took the cruise in the photo that I was showing in the or someone linked here. But it shows a huge smokestack with a lot of black smoke. The article also says that there are strict rules for water treatment in cruise ships. They go ahead and dump this shit in our Canadian waters to avoid having to clean it up. By the way, shit is a technical term, and it refers to human excrement. I don't know if it's totally sanitized when they dump it. Because the bacteria could get into the food supply. I mean, there are marine mammals that could basically take in this bacteria and get very ill. It's so horrid that I was cruising along Alaska with all this majestic beauty, and the ship was dumping this stuff all over the ocean legally. But here are more links. This one, I want to use that term "cripey" if you know who it was. Did you know that cruise ships are not required to obtain an MPDES permit? That's what everyone has to obtain in the United States, any town or any industry. According to Wikipedia, I guess they could just dump anything they want. Seriously, aren't they killing their own business by destroying the wildlife people come to see? What's the point of going to the Bahamas if you go snorkeling to find floating trash and the snorkeling is uneventful? And we did go, and I tell you, it was getting tougher to find the real wildlife. There should be a lot more fish than we saw. It seemed to be very few fish. Especially some of these boats didn't want to take you out too far to make the snorkeling be shorter. So if you were closer to shore, there were fewer and fewer fish, and that's because of the pollution. There should be all over. And here's a Wikipedia article that talks about some of the items about cruise liners. They're pretty dirty. They dump something called gray water. I don't know if you know what it is, but it's all the stuff that comes out of the shower. It does include some of the stuff that goes out from the toilet, and they put it into a tank and they mix it up and they dump it out. And some people say, well, that's organic. It's the fish are going to eat it. Well, most people take in all kinds of pharmaceuticals, especially the ones on the cruise that are already past their 60s. And all that stuff goes out with the water and ends up in fish, and things like estrogen cause huge problems for wildlife. This reminds me of when in the 70s they used to say in class that the solution to pollution was dilution. That's some sort of a joke, because people were doing absolutely nothing about containing pollution in those days. It just went out the stack, whatever the heck it was, until there were regulations. And now people are talking about no regulations, and they have no idea what it was like when there were no regulations and how sick people really got and how many people actually died. They have no clue what they're talking about. It's a good thing I'm older to remember what it was like. So the cruise line industry is $32 billion. And so people don't want to destroy this industry because it gives a lot of jobs to Filipinos and foreigners, and they live on the ship. There's about 1,000 people per cruise line, and it brings in a lot of revenue to these islands, but at what cost? Because once the cruise ship leaves, first of all, these cruise ships don't employ the people on the island to give some business to the island so they can take the visitors on tours and all of these things. But do they actually give them jobs? Those 1,000 jobs come from other places. They hire people in the Philippines and other places. They don't hire people on the islands that they bring tourists to. And if they come in and sit in a harbor and pollute it and ruin the fishing, once the cruise liner leaves, of course, the pollution stays and the animals have died, and then they can't fish and they can't eat. So now they depend on imported food, and they get poorer and poorer and less and more dependent, and the whole thing is a mess. So it's very important, I think. First of all, you should read the novel for $2.99 here. Click on it if you can, because it really talks about even more scenarios. In the idea that Alaska is such a big place with very, very few law enforcement officers. Very little can be done about anybody doing just about anything over there. There's so many places to hide. It's amazing. So yeah, you might want to read about that. And there are law enforcement officers, environmental officers that complain all the time that they can't possibly cover all of Alaska. Um, it's a pretty wild country, so the book is $2.99. Read my blog and sign up, please, here. And then every time there's a new blog posting, I will send you an email with either a link to it or a little excerpt from it. And check us out on at Lydia_Pinto at Twitter. I tweet out all kinds of environmental postings. So thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this new video format for the blog. And we'll see you next week with a new posting on another environmental issue that we need to be concerned with. And take a look at some of our other books. I post other information. I have a children's book on conservation, some ecological business guides. There is a way to make money being green. And we have the eco thrillers, which are here. And this also the second episode, which I'll talk about next week. Thank you very much. Bye bye now.